I'm going to probably get a lot of conflicting views on this, but this is from my experience of using this machine. And I can't say it's been a terrible experience. I've actually been quite delighted with these particular versions. Now, I've used some of the later models, and I've not been pleased with those because the dual cyclone that Eureka and Electrolux used to have were just downright terrible. But these ones are not cyclonic, so that's my reasoning behind it. So today's machine, the original Eureka Airspeeds. This one is the Eureka Airspeed Bagless on a Eureka Airspeed ABS chassis. It's a 1050 with an AS1000 parts, and I'll explain that. So the original chassis, which is from an AS1050, came as a complete AS1050 from, I think, one of my mom's friends. I can't remember exactly what was wrong with it. I'm guessing they just didn't need it anymore. So they gave it to me. Now this was the time when I started transitioning from using bagless vacuums in my house to using bagged vacuums. But even then, I think the AS1000 was my daily driver at the time because it genuinely wasn't bad for what I used it for. But the thing is, this chassis, the AS1050, or I'll refer to it as the ABS chassis, had this annoying electrical issue that was just extremely bothersome. The positive lead that goes from the terminal block hidden under this cover to the motor itself, that white wire kept popping out. And for the longest time, I could not figure out why. So I switched all the Airspeed Bagless parts on this chassis and put all the ABS parts on the Airspeed Bagless chassis because it didn't have that issue. And now the ABS Airspeed Bagless is at my sister's place because they borrowed it and never gave it back. Which, the next time I go cat sit for them, I might trade out the Wind Tunnel Max for it because the Wind Tunnel Max can be used on hard floors. I don't know. Maybe I can get both of them back. But oh well. So, yep. Both of the machines are complete. It's just all the parts are switched. So, yeah. So, to go through the story of the original Airspeed Bagless, I found it at Goodwill with the purple Maxima. I think both machines were about $20 each. And it worked. Sorry, just got a random hiccup there. It worked. The top filter was just extremely caked in dust, but this compartment was actually very clean. Which is why I like the original Bagless Airspeeds. Because the filter, if you can see, is a paper pleated filter, not a dual cyclone setup with a trashy foam filter. This is a paper pleated filter covered by this screen, and it does filter very well. Before this, I had an Airspeed Gold Rewind that I eventually sold, and it was clogged up in the tank up here, the filter was, but this top piece was clean as a whistle. And then I later found an Airspeed Gold, which I think I eventually sold or gave away. That was basically the same thing, except it had no attachments. This top part was just shiny, clean, which you probably wouldn't see that on something like a suction seal or an Airspeed all floors, or as I like to call them, the second generation Airspeeds. You know, like the brush will clean, or any dual cyclonic models, really. These filters do a pretty good job at keeping this part clean and keeping dust out of the motor, at least in my experience so far. The original Airspeed Bagless had a 2-section wand. This being the ABS chassis, it has a single wand. I think the Airspeed Gold and the Airspeed Gold Rewind also had a dual section wand. It's got a dusting brush, the typical very small Eureka dusting brush that you've seen on models as far back as the Maxima and the Whirlwind Lightspeed and all those. And this extremely small crevice tool. Surprisingly, I think almost every machine I've had that is in the Airspeed lineup that is this style, with exception of the Airspeed Gold, had all of their attachments. The Airspeed Gold Rewind did, the Airspeed Bagless on the original chassis did, the ABS did, and I think, yeah, although I was given another Airspeed Bagless that was in honest bad shape. The hose was missing, all the tools were missing, there was no filter up here, and the latch that prevented the filter from being installed broke. So that got parted out and disposed of, which I probably should have kept the motor on that, but oh well. And then these ones have the turbo brush with the magnet that holds them into place, which is something interesting. And hasn't failed on me yet, except for the one in terrible shape. But that's been disposed of and used for parts. Yeah. It's a very nifty concept. It's got a 4-position height adjustment. I'm not a big fan of the 4-position height adjustment, but it's better than an automatic height adjustment or no height adjustment at all. I'd rather have a manual height adjustment on a vacuum than either no height adjustment like on that Performax or a automatic, whether that be just hits the bottom of the, just floats on the carpet like that, or if it's like a SIBO or something. I'd rather just have a manual height adjustment so I can just set it, forget it, and if I need to move to a different floor type, there. Manual height adjustment all the way, but I mean like this dial height adjustment, not like the annoying Kirby height adjustment that you gotta tick 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 tick. Gotta fidget with it to make it work. Here's a brush roll. It's a typical Eureka wooden brush roll, though the Airspeeds use their own style brush roll. My only complaint is there are not really any companies that make replacements for these. So if you have one and the bristles are worn flat, then you're kind of screwed, which is a pet peeve of mine of certain vacuums, is you can't find brush rolls for them because the thing works just fine. But the brush roll is totally shot. That's what's wrong with my Triton. That's what I think is an issue with this Performax. It has yet to be an issue with Airspeeds because I think it's just because they're so new But I don't like that I can't find replacement brushels for these, because I really like this machine. And I might use it every so often, but because I can't seem to find replacement brushels that aren't already used in the first place, I don't think I'll be able to use it so much. So, the dustbin, it is a non-cyclonic, or as Eureka calls it, whirlwind cyclonic. Because it has the same fundamental idea of the later whirlwind models, like the Pet Pal and all that. That being, there is no cyclone and it's just this shroud that guards the filter. If I had to describe it, it's like the Maxima-based power line. It's sorry. It's definitely a better idea than just like the filter being out in the open, like on a Whirlwind Lightspeed or a Maxima. There's at least some protection behind it. It does get dirty kind of quickly, but it's not too bad. It'll last you a good few months before it needs to be washed or replaced. I'm not a big fan of this intentional cloudiness or texture of the dustbin. For me, it's just hard to see what I picked up without emptying it or taking this top off. I'd honestly just prefer if it was all clear and not textured. But it's a decent capacity dustbin. It's about average. These ones, I think, do clean pretty darn well. I talked about the Airspeed Gold Rewind. Well, I used to use that as a daily driver for a long time before I made the switch from bagless to bagged machines. And it was a powerhouse. Used to have this short pile carpet in my living room, and every time I use that, I get a just big lump of stuff in here. You know how the Maximas, when they pick up a lot of dirt, is kind of like a cone-shaped mass that spins around? I basically get a huge one of those just sitting in here after using it once. I really don't think the performance is anything to sleep on with these. I do like how well they clean, which is why for a while I used the ABS on the AS1000 chassis as a daily driver before I got my Sanitaire Force, which is in that room over there. And I really do think it lives up to this claim. And it doesn't have to be specifically the DC-14, the DC-17, and the DC-25. I think it cleans better than most. I think it cleans better than most, if not all, Dysons you can really buy. Call me crazy, Dyson fanatics, but I think that the wood brushels are better than the plastic ones. So let's give it a run. Again, another thing I like about these is that they're quiet. You see vacuums like the Maxima, where they're powerful, but they're extremely loud, and cheap vacuums are not known for being quiet either. These things were under $200, and their noise is honestly pretty bearable. The motor's pretty whiny. It's a Sip-Sunderson motor, but it's still not harsh on the ears. So it also has pretty darn decent suction and airflow for a bagless machine, and honestly, if these were still being made, or if parts were still being made like brushels for these, And it was just this model, not like the suction sealed pad or the second gen Airspeeds. I'd honestly not hate these returning to store shelves, honestly. I think these non-cyclonic Airspeeds were a hell of a deal for under $200, especially with what they give you. Sure, the dust and brush and crevice tool are not great, but most store brand vacuums don't have great attachments anyways. And they're pretty darn durable too. I mean, Eureka has had some pretty darn durable cheap machines. Like, even the Maxima has some pretty thick plastic. The Whirlwind Lightspeeds, these Airspeeds, pretty much all of them, even though the filtration was arguably terrible on a lot of the later models, they're still pretty darn durable. I have yet to really see much plastic break on Eurekas unless they're really old. But yeah, it's durable, it's quiet, it cleans very good, it filters very good too for an Airspeed. These old Airspeeds, I think, were the best ones made. So they are durable, quiet, clean good, filter good, and their price wasn't too bad either. They're about, I want to say, the fourth of a price rather than the third of a price of a Dyson, because I think the DC-25 was $500 and these were around $120, I think. So it's a little more than a fourth of a price, depending on what Dyson model you got, but it definitely kicks butt for an under $200 machine. And the ABS models, if a company made cloth HEPA bags for the ABS models, which they don't, unfortunately, because the Airspeeds, these older Airspeeds really weren't supported for that long. You'd have yourself an excellent machine. So yeah, that's my review on the original Eureka Airspeed bagless uprights. I think AS1000 through the AS1009. I'll look at a manual later and add the proper model numbers into the title. But yeah, I'm Jax Vax and Safety, signing off with another vacuum video, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.